This conference will now be recorded.
Good evening and welcome to the City of Warrenville Community Development Committee of the Whole regular meeting on Monday, November 14th, 2022. Deputy Clerk, could I please have the roll?
Mayor Brummel,
Here.
Alderman Ashour,
Here.
Alderman Berry,
Here.
Alderman Davalos,
Here.
Alderman Goodman,
Here.
Alderman Krischel,
Here.
Alderman Kruckenberg is excused, Alderman Lockett,
Here.
Alderman Widener.
Here.
You have a quorum.
Thank you very much. Will everyone please stand and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Right, now's the time we set aside for citizens' comments. We have one person signed up this evening, Mr. Tom Smiley. Please come to the podium, state your name and address, and speak your piece. Thank you.
My name is Tom Smiley. I live at 3S030 Sunset Drive. I'm not sure the best way to go about this, so I figured I'd put it in meeting minutes somewhere, and I figured since this is community development, what better place to do it? I don't need to get into the backstory of some internal disagreements, but I've actually kind of had this I wouldn't say vision, but idea that the HOA that I'm a part of should be dissolved and the property committed over to the city or the park district for use. It does say in the Articles of Incorporation that were written up in 1975 that if there's a 2/3 vote, which would be 618 members or units, each house gets one vote. Out of the 926, it can be dissolved. I know that's something that we'd probably have to handle on our end internally. However, I don't think there's proper governance, so I think some legal action could probably take care of it pretty quickly. However, we had an election last week, and there was only 17% engagement out of the 926 units, which is pretty low. And I don't know, there's a lot of talks about what they want to do with the pool, and I think there could be a better use. If you think about the community of Warrenville, there's a park district right on the other side of Johnston Middle Elementary School, and it abuts and adjourns all of Summer Lake's property. And I think that, we have friends, my daughter has friends that live on the other side of Mack Road that can't use our pool. So if you think about being fair and equitable to the entire community, this only benefits supposedly 926 people, which if you actually looked at the usage of the clubhouse, the pool, you'd probably get much lower than 17%. So I just wanted to put it in the record somewhere that I'm taking measures or looking into what it would mean for my homeowners association, whether that's I go door to door and get votes. But I'd at least like to maybe talk to somebody in the city realm to talk about what it would look like to have that property granted. In the Articles of Incorporation, it also says that if it is dissolved, the HOA is dissolved, the property has to be granted, conveyed, or dedicated to a public agency for the use of the same as it was created. So that would be non-for-profit and public use. So I just think there's an opportunity for more of Warrenville residents to use that property since it's being underutilized right now. Not to mention right along that Ferry Creek, which is not a lake, it's a creek. There's some big water management issues, which needs the, guidance of EPA, Illinois EPA and things like that, which I don't think the HOA has the understanding of how to do that. So bringing in folks that actually know how to talk to entities and agencies would be appreciated. I just think there's a better use for that. Unfortunately, we have to go through the bylaws of dissolving. So hopefully that doesn't stir a whole bunch of people up into arms. That's all. Thank you.
Thank you for your thoughtful comments. You may want to approach the Warrenville Park District Board and make your statements to them also at a public meeting. Thank you. Are there any other public comments that we received or any emails? Is there someone on the phone, Mr. Heeman? Are you interested in providing public comment this evening?
This is Mark Herman,
Hi, Mark.
and I live in Maple Hill. And I understand there's a possible grant we could get to complete a bicycle path connection to
Excuse
Fox
me,
Hollow.
excuse me, before you get too far into your statement, would you mind just stating for the record your name, full name and address, and then continue?
Oh, sure.
Thank you.
Mark Herman, 30W055 Penny Lane in Warrenville. I live in the Maple Hill subdivision. And it just came to my attention that there was a possible grant for a path connection. And just reading this information on your meeting tonight, it sounds like our HOA board did not endorse or issue a letter of support for this path. And according to this, there was over 100 people at an HOA meeting here that were against this path. I would just like to encourage the city to keep going on this path and keep trying to get this grant. And hopefully we'll have a meeting with our HOA where we can better explain this to people. Everyone I talk to would be really excited about getting a bicycle connection to Fox Hollow. So I don't know why these people on the HOA are saying that there's 100 people opposed to it. I don't see how that's possible. But I'd like to encourage the city of Warrenville to continue to pursue this option, the path and the grant.
Okay, well, thank you for your comments. We're going to be addressing the issue you're speaking to later this evening, if you want to stay tuned. And from my understanding, I think there will be staff in attendance at the January or February Homeowners Association in Maple Hill to clarify all the positions and to lay out the concept for the trail. So stay tuned. And again, we do appreciate your comments.
All right, just wanted you to know that I support it and a lot of people I talk to support it, so I will stay tuned.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, I don't think there's any other public or citizens' comments this evening. So now it's time for officials and staff comments, beginning with the mayor.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I have nothing this evening.
Alderman? Alderman Goodman?
I just wanted to thank everybody who voted in the election. Civic participation is very important. I think our turnout was 54%, which isn't bad for a midterm election. And just, appreciated the smooth running of the elections that was done by the DuPage County Clerk's Office. All the feedback that I got from everyone was extremely positive about how the voting process went and how smoothly the mail-in ballots went. So thank you to everybody who worked so hard on that. I know it is a very large undertaking with a lot of people putting in a lot of hours.
Thank you. Are there any other comments from the alderman? Okay, seeing none, are there comments from the staff? Okay, let's begin the business of the meeting. This evening's first agenda item is discussion of possible liquor license class change for Prime Liquors. And Finance Director Kevin Dahlstrom will introduce this agenda item.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Included in your backup tonight is information related to Prime Liquors, which is located at 2 South 610 Route 59 in the Sutton Square Shopping Center, which is at Route 59 in Batavia Road. The owner of the business, Prime Liquors, is interested in a change in liquor license class from the current B1 liquor license which they hold, which allows them to sell packaged alcohol only. Would like to convert that to a Class A7 liquor license, which would ultimately then lead them to the ability to qualify for a Class V video gaming supplemental license. There are a lot of requirements that would have to come before that could occur, but that is the ultimate goal of the owner of the business. Staff has spent a lot of time and had a number of meetings with the owner of the business. Included in your backup are some plans, very preliminary plans prepared by the owner that would lay out how his business would be configured, which would allow him to have the proper area for his video gaming. He would have a total of 5 chairs available in the gaming area. The business itself would have to be significantly remodeled and reorganized in order for him to qualify for a license. The questions the staff needs answered tonight from you would be, is the city receptive to creating a new Class A7 liquor license for Prime Liquor, which would then also allow them to go ahead and start remodeling their business? And then ultimately, would the council be interested in creating a Class V video gaming license for that same location? And again, it would be required, the business would be required to meet all the gaming requirements, and it would have to be a Class A7 liquor license for a period of a year before they could even qualify for the Class V video gaming. So those are the questions we needed to ask before the owner of the business starts investing in remodeling his business and doing the things that he would need to make it suitable to hold a Class A7 license.
Thank you. Are there questions or comments from the alderman? Alderman Lockett.
Is there a food component in this?
Yes, they would be required to have a food component in there. The owner of the business would have to serve meals out of there, and they could have an arrangement to have meals brought in. To do that, to meet that qualification, they do not currently serve food. Obviously, is it a package carry-out business only.
But there is no plans for a kitchen or anywhere else for any kind of food?
Correct.
So he wouldn't necessarily meet that qualification?
He could meet that qualification if he were to arrange to have a local business bring food to the location.
Okay. And I guess, what makes you think that it's going to turn into like the cafe? I think I had read. What would make that a cafe?
It was staff's opinion that the plan that he has in place would substantially create a cafe, which the council was originally pretty interested in prohibiting that from happening, where the cafe part would become a primary part of the business, being that the video gaming would overtake what they do now.
Okay. Okay, thank you.
Alderman Kruszel.
Thanks. In the city code that we adopted last year, there was a component about a year requirement of having something open or obtaining a new class of liquor license. So would this be an upgrade to the liquor license and then another year before he could apply for the video gaming license, or how would that work?
Correct. He currently has a B1 license. He would need to have a Class A7 liquor license for a year before he could even qualify to hold a video gaming license.
Okay.
Go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not opposed to it from a cafe perspective. I don't know if this is gonna work for him. I think that's my only concern. So, I think a video cafe, which is what we were against, as a council a year ago. I don't think this qualifies as that. I think it's a little bit different, but again, I have some reservations about encouraging him to do something that I don't think would be successful, that's all. So.
Alderman Berry?
I don't see how that, with this, the information we've been given here, the area that he would like to use as his area for the games plus seating, he's got 6 games and 2 tables for sitting to either eat or have a cocktail, whatever, and there just doesn't seem to be a whole lot of area for eating. I don't know how much eating and drinking there will be there. It seems to be more like an area that you grab a quick bite and you go. It's not something where you're sitting and chatting with friends and having a drink and, having some hors d'oeuvres or whatever, sandwiches, but it's not that type of situation. So to me, this is more or less a cafe. I don't even know if it's a cafe. It's only got 2 tables. That's it. The space is all of 16 by 14. Some people's bedrooms are bigger than that. So I don't think this really would qualify as an area where video gaming would fit in, or wouldn't fit into what we were looking at as a place where we would like to have video gaming. So I would be definitely opposed to this. There would something would have to be done differently.
Alderman Goodman?
I agree with Alderman Berry. The addition of 2 3x2 table with chair spaces is 12 square feet total of eating space, no kitchen. It's clearly tacked on as a pretext to get around our ordinance. So I agree with staff's analysis that this would end up meeting the statutory definition of a video gaming cafe, which is not about the cafe part. It's about just being about slot machines, which is what seems to be going on here pretty clearly.
Thank you. Alderman Davalos?
Thank you. Yeah, I just want to go over a couple things just to make sure it's right in my mind, as I remember from the previous discussions we had. We currently have the VFW and the rest of that have a gaming license. The rest of them that are up and operating are basically restaurants, right, that have video gaming, not video gaming that have food. I mean, is that true? Am I not remembering correctly that the businesses we have approved, and the VFW serves foods, but I'm not saying it's a restaurant, but it is for some people. But the other establishments are basically restaurants, am I?
I would not qualify or characterize Hot Shots as a restaurant. It does have a food arrangement with Taco Grill next door, so they don't serve food in and of themselves, but they do meet the requirement, but I would not say they are a restaurant.
Okay, so my understanding with this video cafe and why most of us were not anxious to do that in Warrenville. Some of it was feedback from other communities and other situations, but that we sort of wanted the main part of the business to not be video gaming. And so this is what troubles me about this situation, but I'm trying to compare it to what we have. So what's the space? How do you look at Hot Shots, and do they have I haven't actually been in there, especially recently, so how is that set up differently than what this proposal is tonight?
Well, I think the main part is that it's a different type of business than what this is. The current business here is only a package carryout store, where Hot Shots, that's not what it is. It's actually for on-site
Right.
on-site consumption already.
Okay.
I think
Okay.
that's, to me, the biggest difference between the two right out of the gate.
Yeah, and I think we were trying to keep away from the cafe situation, video cafe, just because it's hard to have hold of it from ordinance-wise, and I think we were open to this video gaming, but under a sort of a control situation that, that things wouldn't change beyond what we could really control and how it looked and that sort of thing. So I think at this point, I agree with the recommendation from staff that this probably isn't a situation as it sits right now that it would be something that would be under the ordinance and something we would approve. Thanks.
Thank you. Alderman Ashower.
This seems to be, I guess I'd call it a backdoor proposal. This is the kind of thing we talked about a lot and we're trying to prevent. In fact, if I recall, we had discussions about new restaurants showing what they have for a year or some period of time to become established before they would be even considered to have machines. And they're not supposed to be, or weren't, at least in my recall of our discussion, they weren't designed to be the predominant feature of the business location. It was supposed, the intention is to have a place that food's available, there's seating, service, whatever you want to call it. You know, and Hot Shots, the few times I've been in there, they have food service. I mean, you can call it what you want, but there's a line waiting for tacos or burritos or whatever you get there, you know? I agree with staff's recommendation on this.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions or comments? If not, I would entertain a motion. Alderman Goodman?
I'd like to make a motion to recommend the City Council direct staff to inform Mr. Surarte that the City Council is not inclined to create and issue a new Class A7 liquor license, nor a Class V video gaming supplemental liquor license for the proposed remodeled Prime Liquors business.
Second.
All right, we have a motion and a second. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Okay, motion carries. Thank you, Mr. Dahlstrom.
You're welcome.
Next item is the presentation of the TIF District 3 and 4 Annual Joint Review Board Meeting information. Community and Economic Development Director Ron Menser will walk us through this presentation. Good evening, Ron.
Thank you, Chairman, and good evening, City Council. Last week, staff and the city's TIF attorney conducted the annual Joint Review Board meetings with for TIF 3 and TIF 4 with the joint review boards of each. And as we did last year, we thought it would be a good idea to present some of the key information that we shared with the joint review boards with the City Council tonight. What I have tonight and what I'll walk through is a short, relatively brief PowerPoint presentation that summarizes and highlights some of the key financials with each TIF district and the key public and private investments that were made in each TIF district in fiscal year 2022. So starting with TIF number 3, that TIF district comprises or encompasses approximately 170 acres. The city hall's in the the Civic Center component of that TIF district. It extends along Batavia Road, the DuPage River corridor, all the way down to the Warrenville Road, Batavia Road intersection. It was established in 2013. When it was established, the base EAV in that TIF district was just over, or about $9.3 million. Just short of that. Last year, the EAV was just slightly higher than that in fiscal year 21, $9.3 million. Over the last, between fiscal year 2021 and fiscal year 2022, the EAV in that TIF district grew by just short of, or just about $2.5 million to over $11 million. Most of that EAV growth was related to the new housing that's been constructed in the Stafford Place project that Earhart developed. All of the EAV for what's out there today has not yet been captured and reflected in the assessments, at least in the fiscal year 2022 assessment. The amount of TIF revenue that we collected in fiscal '22 was just short of $450,000, which was about a 50% increase from the prior fiscal year. You might recall that TIF number 3 has a running deficit. The city invested a bunch of funds from a variety of other city funding sources to get that TIF going. Primarily, those investments in TIF 3 anyway related to the city's acquisition, cleanup, and preparation of the former Musselman property for private redevelopment. But this past year, in TIF, or fiscal year '22, the deficit in TIF 3 decreased from $3.6 million to just short of $3.4 million. From a private redevelopment and investment standpoint, the main project we saw completion was the Stafford Place project. That project began construction in late fiscal 2018. In 2022, fiscal year 2022, we issued the last 4 occupancy permits in that project, and the project's now complete. To me, this is the photos here, the ones down in the left lower corner are a great before and after. I think it's something the city should continue to celebrate. On the top there, pointed out, just highlight the old Musselman Company property. Not the best and most representative of what the city is today, but that property, this is kind of taken from a similar, the picture below, it's taken from a similar vantage, and you can see what the difference is, the transformation that's taken place because of all the investment that the city was able to make. And over the next 15 years, the city will recoup all the investment it's made through the TIF revenue that's primarily being generated by the new development in that project. Another big TIF private investment project that was completed in fiscal year 2022 was the Warrenville Horizon Senior Living Project. 71 units of age-restricted, mixed-income, independent living that now exists at the northeast corner of Batavia and Butterfield Roads. That project was fully occupied by the end of fiscal year 2022. From a public investment standpoint, almost all of the public investment that the city made into TIF 3 in fiscal year 2022 involved what we commonly refer to as Old Town Redevelopment Site number 2. The bulk of that redevelopment site is the former Citgo gas station property. The city acquired that property in the summer of 2020, but in fiscal year 22, we completed the demolition of the structures on that property. In conjunction with the demolition of the structures, there was a variety of hazardous building materials that we had to remediate and mitigate appropriately, and we took care of a variety of those materials as part of the demolition project. We also secured a $690,000 partially forgivable, no interest revolving loan from the Illinois EPA Office of Brownfield Assistance in 2022. That loan will help reduce the amount of future TIF revenue that the city will have to invest into this project to finish cleaning it up and preparing it for private redevelopment. We recently, or towards the end of fiscal year 2022, the City Council endorsed a preferred preliminary redevelopment plan for that property. And that's the plan that's illustrated in the lower right corner of the slide that you're looking at. And then finally, last but not least, I have on there that we have submitted a miscellaneous site, or performed miscellaneous site investigation, IEPA reporting, and probably would use extensive rather than miscellaneous. As you might recall, there's a couple different divisions of the Illinois EPA that we're working on as it relates to this property. We're working with the Leaking Underground Storage Tank Program and the Voluntary Site Remediation Program. and the Office of Brownfields Assistance. So there's 3 different components of the IEPA, and they all have their own reporting requirements that we've been continuing to satisfy over the last fiscal year. So before I move on to TIF 4, is there any questions anybody has on what's transpired in TIF 3? What transpired in TIF 3, I should say, in fiscal year 2022? Okay. All right. TIF 4. TIF 4 is about 300 acres out in the southwest quadrant of the city, extending just north of Butterfield and Route 59 intersection down to Ferry Road. That TIF district was created in 2016, so it's a little newer than TIF 3. When it was created, the equalized base assessed value in the TIF district was just about 8.5 million. In fiscal 2021, the EAV had grown to about $10.5 million. And then over the last, between fiscal year 2021 and the end of fiscal 22, the EAV grew by approximately another $2.5 million. The amount of TIF revenue that was created in fiscal 2022 was just short of $400,000, which represented about a 100% increase from fiscal 21 to 22. So that TIF district is performing very well. Most of that increase in revenue is directly related to all the new residential development that's happening on both sides of Route 59, primarily related to the Lexington Trace and Everton projects. There is some commercial development that has been completed and assessed also, the Thornton's project and the Culvers project. There's also a deficit in the TIF 4. The city fronted a bunch of money to help facilitate the roadway improvements, the new Duke Parkway, Route 59 intersection, and a bunch of sewer and water improvements that were brought into the TIF district to help support the development that has happened since the TIF was established. Lexington Trace is one of the is the TIF project that's private project that's furthest along. That project was approved by the city in the spring of 2019. At this point in time, all the infrastructure and project improvements for phase 1 of the project are complete. In fiscal year 2022, we issued the last the building permits for the last 5 units in that project. And by the end of fiscal year 2022, 90 of the 106 townhouse units approved in that project had received their final occupancy permits. You may recall that when this project was approved, there was a TIF redevelopment agreement that the city entered into with Lexington Homes. And as part of that redevelopment agreement, the city issued a TIF developer note in the amount of approximately $400,000 for a bunch of the infrastructure costs, which included a bunch of off-site infrastructure that the city worked with Lexington Trace to construct in conjunction with their project. And in fiscal 2022, we made the first $76,000 payment towards that $400,000 note. On the other side of Route 59 was the Everton project, which consists of 3 components. The commercial component, the townhouse component, and the apartment component. The townhouse component was again approved in the spring of 2019. At this point in time, all the required public infrastructure is essentially complete. In fiscal year 2022, we issued building permits for for 27 townhouse units in that project, and we issued occupancy permits for 32 townhouse units in that project. The apartment component of that project was also approved in the spring of 2019, and that project was completed in fiscal year 2022, and about halfway through fiscal year 2022, that project was 95% occupied, or essentially fully occupied. Any questions on TIF 4?
Alderman Goodman?
Yeah, it's on basically both TIFs, and it's really a question more for Kevin. How well have the TIF revenue projections that we worked so hard on last year held up against actual TIF revenue in general? Do you have a sense of these things?
They've done pretty well, actually, to what we originally projected, and I think they've actually been a little better than we projected originally.
That's very good to hear. Thank you.
And I just, one point on that is Kevin has already started to begin to update those projections for fiscal year 2023 now that the assessment data is available, and he's waiting for community development to provide us information, and we'll be circling back with the work group to share that update as part of the budget process.
Other questions or comments? All right, thank you as always for the excellent report. Appreciate the update. And with that, we'll move on to item number 3. Consideration of updated staff recommendation on the proposal Fox Hollow Maple Hill Trail Connection Project. Christine Hocking, Senior Civil Engineer, is with us this evening to tell us about this item.
Thank you,
Welcome.
Chair. Thank you, Chairman. Thank you, Council. At the September 19th City Council meeting, you all approved a resolution authorizing staff to apply for an ITEP grant for the Maple Hill Fox Hollow Path Project. In order to make it a stronger application, I had stated at that meeting that we were asking the Forest Preserve District of DuPage County, as well as the Maple Hill HOA for letters of support. The Forest Preserve did send us a letter of support to go along with that application. However, at the Maple Hills HOA meeting after that September 9th City Council meeting, they decided not to provide a letter of support. I had a conversation with the association, the HOA management company contact that I had been in contact with, providing information about the project, and she said that during that HOA board meeting that the HOA board was not in support because of various concerns regarding where the path was going to be connected within the subdivision, potential for crime on the path, and how the path could invite non-residents into the subdivision amongst other items and concerns that they had. As a result of this HOA feedback, which was literally days before the application was due, staff decided not to apply for the ITEP project because this would mostly benefit the Maple Hill subdivision. I think stepping back would allow staff to really understand where the HOA and the members and residents of that subdivision really, if there were more residents that were for it, that they would be able to have their voices heard potentially. So the HOA management company said that a January, February meeting would be a potential for staff to come if staff wanted to present the facts and history of the project and just kind of lay everything out regarding the project and why the city was going after the grant application. I did have conversations with another board member, more conversations with this HOA management company, just trying to explain what the history was of the project, why we were where we were at, why we were applying, how City Council had recommended staff to continue looking for the funding for this project. So it was actually my idea to go to that HOA board meeting and, just present the facts, and then the HOA board and its members and residents could provide information back of whether they really wanted to provide a letter of support. The ITEP funding is a 2-year funding cycle, so we wouldn't be able to apply for ITEP for another 2 years. There is another funding cycle for Surface Transportation Program funding, or STP, which is what the Trailhead Project has right now. That also is a 2-year funding cycle. I believe it's every even years. So it would be up again in 2024 that we could potentially apply for that one. Staff's follow-up actions as outlined in the memo are to meet with the HOA, talk with the police department to see if there's any issues with crime on city-owned paths or sidewalks within the community, and also talk with the Forest Preserve District about the potential for a different connection into the subdivision. The only reason why there's the connection as it's shown currently on our map is because the city has a sanitary sewer easement from Fox Hollow to Maple Hill, and that's the exact alignment. So it makes sense to have a path already on a city easement where there's a sanitary sewer. So that's the only reason why that connection was there, but I plan to speak with the Forest Preserve to see if they would be up for a different type of connection. Obviously, it would be not straightforward, but we have a good relationship with the Forest Preserve, so I intend to have that conversation as well. So, some of the recommendation is obviously to perform these follow-up actions if the committee decides to support that.
Thank you. Could you just remind us what the acronym ITEP stands for and what some of the qualifications are in order to apply for ITEP grant, please?
Yes, it's Illinois Transportation Enhancement Program. It is funded 80% by the Federal Surface Transportation Grant, and it allows for funding for preliminary and final engineering, construction engineering, and obviously construction. So 80% of all of those different phases. And it's to provide, what the grant is more for transportation enhancement like bike paths, or ITEP is also used for streetscape. So we received an ITEP grant for the streetscape project that the city completed a few years back, adding lighting, adding signage, various components like that. So it's related to transportation, but it's more enhancement, kind of not just paths, but it qualifies. There's various different types of other projects that can qualify for ITEP. Surface Transportation Program is specifically either usually resurfacing projects or path projects. It's not related to streetscape projects or more enhancing the transportation ways.
And the potential for this trail would link with some of the other pedestrian and bicycle routes in Warrenville, but it would also cross somewhat of a wetland area, and I would imagine it would have viewing stations and probably some interpretation overlooks along the way as it extended over to the other connection for the Maple Hill residents to enjoy, so it wouldn't strictly be a traffic corridor.
Correct, yes. Yeah, it would be both. However, yes, it would have interpretation signage over the wetland. You would have to do some type of boardwalk. Obviously, there's mitigation related to wetland, but there were proposed for signage along the path. Obviously, working with the Forest Preserve, since that's their property, they could have some suggestions as well for signage along that path.
And it could still follow the existing easement. It would be there, just like at the end of it towards Maple Hill, there would be maybe like an offshoot or a change in the trail corridor to better fit the Maple Hill Homeowners Association desires, where they envision the best entry, safest entry place would be for their purposes.
Yep, that's correct. The connection south on Fox Hill would be right into city right away. There's a kind of a dead-end street. I forget the name of the street right now, but there's a dead-end street that the path would essentially connect into. And it does connect into, if you go through Maple Hill, obviously one of the other projects that's currently ongoing in final engineering is the Mac Road path project that will connect that area, Fox Hollow, to the east towards Blackwell Forest Preserve. And so that then connects into the regional trails of the Forest Preserve District. Obviously, you can loop around back into the Batavia Road path as well. So you can, with this connection, the Maple Hill residents could connect to all of the other bike paths within the Forest Preserve and within the city that we have right now.
And their only alternative right now is to ride the shoulder or Route 59 to any of those access points.
Correct.
Right?
Right.
Okay. Are there other questions or comments from Alderman Davalos? Go ahead.
Yeah, I'd just like to make a suggestion building on what Alderman Widener said about BPAC, the Bicycle and Pedestrian Commission. Maybe it might be a good idea to invite someone from that commission to go with staff, because I think it's always an opportunity for education on some of these things. If you look at the big overall plan for Warrenville that the commission has been, well, staff and we all have been involved, but the commission has been taken leadership in this, it's really a very amazing plan. And it keeps getting, it seemed so impossible at first when I first learned about it and came on the council, but more and more paths have happened and trails have happened, and we're working with the Forest Preserve and the county, and we're getting grants, and it's really, it's a big deal right now to have places to bike and walk. I mean, that's what is happening around the country. And so I think maybe if some of those residents maybe saw the big plan and saw the sort of the rationale behind it and what we're trying to do, I think, and the advantages for them, I think people coming off Mack Road, for instance, are going to go into Fox Hollow, and if they want to go to the wetlands, they'll go north. They may just turn around and come back out. It's not like they're going to go into Maple Hill and then come back on 59 or something. So I think it's worth maybe a bigger discussion to see that we need this piece. This would be so great for Maple Hill residents to be able to do that, and they may just not understand that it's not just them, it's part of the whole community, and the whole community is having pathways in their areas, in neighborhoods, along parks, all over, down Batavia Road, all the way to Bower and back, and we're trying to connect it all up. So everybody's going to be going everywhere, and it's not an entourage thing. It's these are just our residents, and yeah, there may be people coming from Winfield or Wheaton driving through McKees Marsh or something and trying to connect up, but it's really going to be a very cool thing and very beneficial to the community and reflects who we are. And I think once you get excited about this, then you can buy in maybe. And I think maybe if that was presented along with the staff presentation, it just might be another informational piece that might be helpful.
Yes, and our BPAC liaison, Kristen Youngmeyer, I was actually going to ask her to come with me as well, but that is a good suggestion to have another actual BPAC member there. And also staff, that Bikeway Implementation Plan was put together back in 2010. It was updated in 2016 to enhance kind of the Route 59 corridor. Obviously, that's been a while since 2010, so staff has actually started to go through the document and, you know, taking a look at what projects have actually been done. It is very, very positive to see. You know, you look at one oh, that's already been in. Oh, developer put in that one. Oh, developer did this one. City did this. You know, so you start going down the list and you start to see the improvements that the city has done in the last 10 plus years, whether it's on their own, our own, or through developments that, you know, like Ron has just talked about. You know, there's been a lot of progress in that Bikeway Implementation Plan, and I think it's going to be good to see the progress. I'm not sure we're going to have it before that January meeting, but we can try to have that and, you know, have at least a glimpse of what the city has done, you know, since.
Yeah, and maybe bring a big visual or something if you can get it done. That would be, show them the whole plan, because it's pretty remarkable. So anyway, thank you.
Alderman Goodman?
I appreciate Alderman Davalos's suggestions. I know, for instance, that a Maple Hill resident who was on BPAC for many years, Mr. Jones, contacted me about the possibility of this path many times. I know that there are also Fox Hollow residents who would be on the other end of this path who have been on the BPAC in the past and might have feedback about that neighborhood. I think talking to people from Fox Hollow might help increase communication about this situation. We just had Halloween, and one thing we in Maple Hill don't really have is any trick-or-treaters. So if there are going to be people coming along this path, going through the spooky woods for Halloween to go trick-or-treat in Maple Hill, I imagine that many of the seniors in my neighborhood would just love it, having little kids from Fox Hollow come up the path and come trick-or-treat in our neighborhood. I mean, talk about being more welcoming to your neighbors. I can just imagine some wonderful community event being created around this. But that's, I guess, talk for another day. We've had to delay this project because of the HOA. It's my hope that they will reconsider that decision. One thing I might add to Ms. Hawking's remarks is that another reason, in addition to the easement for having the path in that particular location, is that there is a path already there. I don't think that that gets emphasized enough in discussions of this project. This path exists, it's pretty overgrown, it's not in great shape in some areas, there's a little too much poison ivy, I think, and of course, at some times when the wetlands are wet, you don't want to have to walk over a little stream that's right towards the Fox Hollow end of the path. There are some boards laid over that, but it isn't really built as a path in that area. And hopefully, all those things would be improved if the path was actually built. I guess I'd only make one other remark, which is that the people whose houses are directly on the other end of the path have told me, I got an email from a resident this morning who I believe is on the line, saying that his home is right at the end of where this path currently exists, and he's tremendously in favor of the path, and no one has asked him his opinion. So in terms of moving the path to a different location, I don't know, having it right by people who are happy about it seems like an okay location. If they want to move it down a couple of buildings and have it come out right behind my house, I would be tremendously in favor of that. I think having a path there would be great, and my home fronts very near the end of the path. The other residents that I've spoken to who have houses right in that area have all been in favor of this path for years. So obviously, more discussions need to be had with the HOA, and I look forward to that.
Thank you. There's no other comments. I believe we would like to have a motion on this item. Alderman Lockett?
I'd like to make a motion that the City Council authorize staff to implement the follow-up actions outlined in Senior Civil Engineer Hawking's November 7th, 2022 Maple Hill, Fox Hollow Path Connection Next Steps Memo.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. If there's no further discussion, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The motion carries. And we're down to the next item, number 4, to review and file the Community Development Department fiscal year 2023 work program update. There's any comments on that? I'd be interested in hearing them now. If not, we'll gladly accept those, that work program update and review and file it as it's called for. Moving on to the next agenda item is to review and file the always excellent bi-monthly code enforcement activity report. And do we have any comments or questions regarding that? Alderman Ashour?
Just like to note that we obviously have worked through some of the staffing issues because there is a lot of code enforcement.
Yes, we appreciate that. Thank you for your comment. If there's nothing else, before I call for adjournment, I just wanted to thank staff for always providing the necessary backup and information and presentation materials that make our job a lot easier. And with that, thank you very much, staff. And we have one final action. Alderman Goodman.
I move to adjourn.
Second.
A motion is second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Okay, thank you very much. Good evening.
Are you just going to recycle this whole pile?
This conference is no longer being recorded.
Happened to me. I didn't get a whole packet. I just got to the end, just put 3. Could I just
What would
have-
you like?